Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third episode of SiteSell Presents. I'm your host, Mike Alton, and today we're talking about the wonderful world of social media. And when it comes to not just talking about social media, but doing social, the way social should be done, these guests are the people I look to. I'll introduce each, and then we'll get into some questions for the panel. But before I do, I'd like to remind all of you watching live that if you leave a comment with a question on the event page, we'll try to get to it during the show. With that, let's say hello to our guests. Jeff Sieh hosts the Manly Pinterest Tips show, all about leveraging the power of Pinterest by and for those of the manly persuasion. He's also a social media consultant, speaker, author, and visual storyteller, and the owner and creative director of His Design Inc. Hello, Jeff, and welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm honored to be here. Having you host, that's just awesome because we've done shows before, but I can just sit back while you drive. It's great.
Yeah, my pleasure. You're right. I've been fortunate enough to be on your show several times, so thank you for coming here.
Sure.
Next, we have Dustin W. Stout, who's a designer and social media consultant. Currently, he's the Chief Marketing Officer for Wheel Media and the lead designer and marketing director for Warfare Plugins, the company that created the social warfare plugin for WordPress. Hello, Dustin, and welcome to the show.
Hello, and good morning.
Wow, that was quite the hello.
I've had my coffee this morning.
That's right.
That's for sure.
We all need to be caffeinated. Fantastic.
Always. All the time.
And finally, we have Rebekah Radice. She's been involved in marketing for over 17 years and blogging for more than 10. Her blog, RebekahRadice.com, was voted a 2015 top 10 social media blog by one of the best resources online, Social Media Examiner. Hello, Rebekah, and welcome to the show.
Well, good morning. I don't think I can beat that hello from Dustin, but yeah, I need a little bit more coffee.
I'll send some your way. You're right down the street, so.
Exactly. But hello, and thank you for having me here. Thrilled to get to hang out with you guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Thank you so much. So, with that, let's get to it. Now, first, I think it'd be great if you each took a moment to share with us a bit more about yourselves. Specifically, how did you get started in social media as a professional?
Anybody?
And go.
Ladies first.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I will start us off. So for me, it was kind of testing the waters on my own. I was in the real estate and mortgage industry for many, many years, owned my own company, and marketing was really my area of expertise. And social media, which of course came after, well, we didn't necessarily call it blogging when we all first got started. It was more like journaling. But when I got started, it was because I loved to write. I saw it as a way for me to kind of connect with people through my blog. And so I started that just playing around, having fun. And then started with social media. It was Twitter and Facebook. Facebook first, and really fell in love with Twitter and saw a huge opportunity just for my business, and then really started to see the opportunity from a training perspective. So much of what I've done for years is training business professionals on how to use marketing, and at the time it was traditional marketing, to really build their personal brand. And so social media was a natural extension of that, as was blogging, and helping them really see what putting their expertise out there online could do for them. And so it became a whole training platform for me on helping others see how they could begin with blogging, really build their foundation, and then amplify their message through social media. And of course the bug bit me, and I decided that this was the direction that the industry was really heading as a whole with marketing. And of course we've trended into now what we all call inbound marketing, and just a complete integrated strategy. And so I think, you know, for me, the genesis really began with my own personal marketing, but for me, training and educating and teaching people is really where my heart is at. And so, as I said, I quickly saw that as an opportunity for others to leverage, and it's just kind of snowballed from there.
That's fantastic. Dustin, you want to go next?
Sure. So a lot like Rebekah, I kind of stumbled into this whole thing too. I actually moved out to California. I was born and raised in small town, Pennsylvania, a town you've never heard of called Sharon. And I was destined to come out to California to be an actor, to be in the film industry. Went to school for it, graduated, got right out into the, was fortunate enough to find an agent right away and get out into some auditions. What I found out was in Hollywood, celebrities act and actors end up waiting tables. So I didn't like waiting tables, so I had to find a real job to support myself. And I've always been a social person, and as an actor, you kind of have to be, right? You have to be social and like people because it's not about what you know, it's who you know. And as an actor as well, we really love telling stories. That's what we're about. We're actors and filmmakers and producers. They just love telling stories. And so those two elements, I think, primed me for a career in social media, because right around when I was getting out there and not wanting to wait tables was when Facebook really took off, and then Twitter started to kind of come into its own. And I got really interested in it, and I had a knack for the technological, so I caught on pretty quick. And it started as an experiment like Rebekah, sort of my own personal brand. And through building my own personal brand, people started contacting me saying, "Hey, did you design your own website?" "Yeah, I did." So they would go naturally, "Hey, could you do it for me?" And I thought, "Sure, I guess I can." I'll never forget it. My first client, that's exactly what he said to me. He came to me and said, "Hey, did you design your own blog?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Cool. Well, you understand this whole Twitter thing, right?" Yeah, I get it pretty much." And he goes, "Well, what would you have to charge me to do that for me?" And I thought, there's an interesting idea. I could probably do that. What does someone like me charge for something like that? And so that kind of started the rabbit hole of social media consulting and web design. And from there I just kept growing. Like I said, I love people. I love learning. And here I am today. 4 years later, after starting my first professional blog, Chief Marketing Officer for a full-service digital marketing firm. And it's been a crazy, wild ride, and I keep learning every single day about how to tell stories better and how to help others do the same.
That's awesome. You have such a great story, and I cannot believe how long I've known you, that I just found out, a few months ago, that acting was your background. I think that's so cool, because it is. It's such a perfect tie-in.
Yeah, well, this personality isn't by accident.
Yeah.
It's an intentional, strategic training.
There you go. Uh-huh.
And maybe a little bit of talent, too. I don't know.
Maybe a little bit, yeah.
Great. Jeff, can we hear from you?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna borrow a line from Cynthia Sanchez, and I've been on the internet since it was black and white. So I've been doing that. I started a company about 13 years ago called His Design, a local digital marketing agency, and just really, I was back. You remember when Flash websites were the thing? Yeah, I built those. Yeah. So did that, and then I finally started. I better start doing what I'm telling my clients to do and get on the social media bandwagon. And so I started doing that. Got involved with Google Plus. When Google Hangouts started coming out, I thought those were cool, and I watched a lot of those. And one day I was driving back from a road trip, and I heard Cynthia Sanchez from Oh So Pinteresting, a podcast on the Social Media Examiner podcast, and this Pinterest thing interested me because it drove traffic. And so I started playing with it, and it really did started driving a lot of traffic to my new blog. And so somebody said, "Hey, you ought to do a show," because I wrote a blog post called the Manly Pinterest Tips, and it was about sharing a secret board with my daughter, and it really did well. And somebody said, "Hey, do a show about that." And so I got 4 other guys who had a lot bigger following than I did. Mike was one of them. We had Stefan Hovnanian and Wade Harmon, and Les Dossie started with us too. And we did this show, probably 7 or 10 episodes, and it took off. And other shows followed, and then beginning of this year I launched the Manly Pinterest Tips show and podcast with just myself. and it's done really well. And it just opened up a lot of opportunities with consulting and business, and so I've kind of pivoted my business to the social media thing. I grew out a beard because a good beard, takes about a year to grow, and I thought I'll give it a try for a year, and so it's been over a year.
Nothing says manly like a really good beard.
That's right, and I'll send you one. When I trim it, I'll send you one you can paste it on.
You'll send me a beard?
Yeah, I'll send you so you can be a little manly, put a little something on for your shows and stuff. So don't worry about it. So that's my story.
Thanks. Yeah, and I remember that first tip. I mean, I still use that today. I've got a board for my oldest daughter, and I need to create one soon for my youngest, who's just a few months old, 9 months old. So, yeah, those tips work. Stick.
It was a fun time, yeah.
So one of the questions that I always get from business owners, one of their very first questions is, what social network should I be on for my business? And I know you guys hear that a lot too. So how do you like to answer that when someone asks you that question?
And go.
We're all trying so hard not to step on each other, right?
All right.
I'll be that guy. And it's selflessly, so you all don't have to be that guy or girl.
Thank you.
Well, one of the things I like to tell clients is first and foremost, don't worry about being everywhere. Because if you try to be everywhere, you're going to be nothing to no one. You're going to spread yourself so thin, and you're going to be a mile wide and an inch deep. You're not going to build any true relationships. So the first thing I say is, we're gonna go one network at a time and figure out where your audience is. So we're gonna start with some social listening. We're gonna get a tool like Mention.net or Brand24, and we're gonna start looking at where your brand is getting the most mentions and the most activity. And we're gonna start doing some audience research. Where are your competitors? Where are your competitors spending the most time? Where is the most engagement around your topic? And so we'll go through a number of very strategic sessions, narrowing down where that audience is, and then we're going to go to where that audience is most active and start there. Once we start there and really start to cultivate a community, then we'll maybe look at the second place network. But for me and my clients, it's always been about, we'll find the one place that the most activity is happening, and we'll start there. It doesn't matter if it's, if the network has 2 billion users or if the network has, 70 million users. What matters is where is the target audience most active at currently. Then we can move on from there.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice. It just makes zero sense to spread yourself out all over the place, as you said, Dustin. If you're just getting started and you spread yourself out too thin, it's just a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. You're not going to be able to keep up with it. It's going to feel overwhelming, burdensome, and pretty quickly you're going to give up. And I think, just understanding where your target market is spending their time is critical. My company, we do something called the Digital Advantage, where we do a very deep dive, a full report into where your competition is spending their time, what opportunities are out there in the market, and then how can you leverage those opportunities for your company. And back to what Dustin said, I think so much of that is really understanding each social network, the role it plays in supporting your business, and then where are you going to get the biggest bang for your buck, basically. Where are you going to be able to spend the majority of your time and capture as much audience attention and participation as possible. And then I think, a huge piece that's often overlooked is the strategy aspect. So understanding if you want to be on Facebook, well, how does Facebook help you reach your overall goals? How is it driving you towards those marketing goals every single day? And so outlining, what are those steps that you're going to take? What is it that you're trying to actually achieve to get there? Because of course that's something else we probably all see, which is, people come to us and they say, Facebook doesn't work, or Google Plus doesn't work. Well, when you really take a look at what they've been doing, it's more than likely those things that we call one-off tactics, where they're throwing some content out there, maybe they're running some ads, they're throwing money at a social network rather than really understanding the strategy behind it. So a lot of times for me, it's slowing people down long enough to really understand what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and I would agree with both what Rebekah and Dustin said. One of the things that I tell a story is I can do my own taxes. I have before. I hate every stinking minute of it, and I screw it up all the time. And so I think a lot of the times, it's almost to the point now, social media accounts and running social media, if you don't like doing it, it's so important that you're going to have to hire somebody else to do it. And the thing is if you have somebody and your audience is on Pinterest or your audience is on Facebook, like Dustin said, or and you hate doing it, it's not going to happen. So you've got to either find a way to get somebody inside of your company and bring them up who enjoys doing it to do it, or hire somebody to do it for you. I mean, it's that important. But don't try to do something that you hate. If you don't fit on Twitter, then don't try to force yourself to do it, because it's not going to be successful in the long run.
Yeah, well, and it's not sustainable. It's just not something that you're going to enjoy doing every single day. I couldn't agree more. As entrepreneurs, you have to give those things away to allow yourself to focus on money-making opportunities, because I do think we get too much in the weeds of our own business instead of focusing on what's the highest and best use of our time. Yeah. And social media may not be it. It may not be your thing, and it may not be what you enjoy doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
to me, sustainability is the key word, and that's why we start always with our clients with one network. And with the larger clients, the enterprise-type clients, they have departments, and sometimes they have subsidiaries, and maybe they can sustain multiple networks. But the key word is always sustainability. Are we going to be able to maintain our strategy, because we're going to put a strategy in place. We're going to do that first, but can we maintain that strategy and sustain it for an extended period of time? For us, if you can't do something for at least 3 minutes, or 3 months, as opposed to 3 minutes, if you can't sustain it for 3 months to test whether or not it's actually working, then you're never going to get any real results or any real intelligence out of your efforts. Because intelligence is more valuable than whether or not you succeeded. It's the intelligence of what you gained over that experience. So sustainability is key.
Yeah, that's a great point. Now, Susanna Perkins asks, how do you find out where your target audience is hanging out? Dustin, you mentioned a couple things. Maybe you want to elaborate, and if the rest of you could jump in with your own suggestions or tips on how you can actually find which social networks or which individuals are hanging out on a particular social network that might be a good fit for your business.
Yeah, there's a ton of social listening tools. Two of my favorites that we use constantly are Mention. So if you visit mention.net, it is a sorry, my son wants me to come downstairs.
Aww.
Maybe I should bring him up. He knows about this stuff too. I teach him all the time. But Mention.net is a great company that has some free social listening tools you can check out. I've spoken with a lot of their team, really great people. Their product is fantastic, and as a design snob, I love using their web interface because it's just beautifully designed and it's intuitive. Another one, same thing. I could say the same thing for brand24.net. They have some other free tiers. Also, you can do social listening. So basically, what you're doing is you're setting up what they call, either campaigns, or you set up keywords, so to speak, that are around your brand, either related to your actual brand name, or one little trick that I do for my personal brand and also for Wheel Media is I'll make a keyword our domain name. So I'll use dustn.tv as the keyword, and that way I can see whenever a link is shared to my site, and it could be any link to any article, it'll catch that dustn.tv, and I'll see which network is getting the most traction for my content, or where it's being shared most. And there's other tools where you can find that too. But that's one way to say, okay, here's where the most activity and the most lift that our brand is getting on social, and let's focus there. And those are just 2 social listing tools, and there are a bunch of them. There's also, you can go to, research companies. There's a lot of third-party market research companies that will do that reporting for you, or have done studies about demographics and so forth. And any good marketing company has access to those types of reports or subscribes to those sorts of services, and can tell you, and will probably already know, like, here's the breakdown of the demographics of Pinterest and Facebook, and so we already have a general idea of what direction we want to start. But that's somewhere to start.
Yeah, mention is a great one, and I think what you just said, Dustin, is so important, which is pay attention to your analytics. Pay attention to what's being shared. If you're using something like what Dustin's talking about, a tracking URL, where you can actually see who's sharing content or what content is getting the most interaction from Google+, from Facebook, from Twitter. So get really specific in how you're sharing your content, and then dive into your Google Analytics. That is, wow, it's going to be eye-opening for you. So many people come to us and say, I think I'm getting the majority of my traffic from Twitter. And when we take a look, that's not the case at all. So it really helps to understand, first of all, which social network is supporting your company. Where are people finding you? And where are they actively having conversations around your content, sharing your content? But yeah, there's tons of different ways to listen, tons of third-party tools. One of my favorites is Sprout Social. I use it daily, where you can set up alerts, you can set up keywords, you can set up just so many different ways where you can listen in and see what people are talking about, maybe what your competition is talking about, how they're interacting on different social networks, how they're interacting with their audience, and then take that and figure out, okay, what does that mean for my business? If they've got a pretty substantial following over here on Google+, is that something that I'm going to be able to build within my own business? Well, it just really helps you to start to formulate a plan, but also understanding how other people are using specific social networks within your industry can be very, very helpful. So I think it's doing your due diligence too. We talk a lot about spying on your competition, which always sounds a little 007-ish, but it's brilliant. It's so smart to see what's being done well, what's not, and then where are those opportunities for you to really insert yourself into that conversation.
Now, if I can add one thing and emphasize one thing that you said that is so important. You said about perception. So a brand had a perception about where they were getting the most traffic, but it turns out that they actually weren't. So one of the things that I've helped to co-create is a little plugin called Social Warfare, and it's it's just a set of social sharing buttons with some goodies on the back end. But one of the things it does is it allows you to see how many shares you're getting on each network. And so what a lot of people do is they'll look at how many shares am I getting on each network, and that's where the one that's doing the best is the most beneficial, where that's not actually true in most cases. So if we can dive a little deeper down there, if you're not using Google Analytics to its full potential, you are sorely missing out on some really great intelligence. One of the things that we also built into Social Warfare was the ability to track more than just the number of shares. So we built in some analytics capabilities. So you can actually track the shares of your content through Google Analytics that happen through the plugin, and you can dive in and you can build reports that are, I think, some of the key metrics for my sites and for our clients are not just how much traffic you're getting from each network, but what's the quality of traffic. Some of the things you should be looking at are time on site. So if you're getting 1,000 visitors from Reddit each month, but the average time on site is 15 seconds, that traffic isn't worth much. But if you're getting 100 visits a month from Facebook and the average time on site is 2.5 minutes, you want to spend a lot more time on Facebook cultivating that audience. So it's really about having a full spectrum look, not just a surface level, where am I getting the most shares, or where am I getting the most traffic even. It's really, what are those engagement metrics? And I love that you said that, Rebekah, about it's not just about where you think you're getting the most traffic. It's actually deeper than that.
Well, and you bring up just another whole conversation, which I love that you've gone that route, of vanity metrics within social media. Ooh. And likes and shares are great. They may feel good. They give us, that happy, emotion of, woo, people like me. But if they're not converting, if they're not turning into a lead and a sale, then what is the point? And I think this goes back to really understanding what your strategy is. What are you looking to get out of social media? Because I find way too many people get into social media with zero plan, with zero expectation or anticipation of what social media is supposed to or is going to do for them. So I think what you're talking about, Dustin, is really transitioning from that mindset of, wow, I'm gonna pay for ads, or I'm gonna look at, just driving engagement, getting those share numbers up as high as possible, instead of focusing on what is the end goal you're really trying to achieve. Are you a local business and you're trying to get people into your shop? Are you an e-commerce website and you're trying to get people to click on buy? You just need to understand what your goal is with social media and how it's going to support getting you there a whole lot faster. And I think we can talk a little bit about that. And I'd love for you guys to talk about too the credibility aspect and how social media really helps you take that from those likes and shares and those vanity metrics and create that know, like, and trust factor, so you can start to move them through that marketing funnel and actually get them through that whole buying stage a whole lot faster.
I wanted to mention something, kind of a real-world example, and maybe you can learn from my mistakes, because I make a lot of them. One of the things that I did is, I had played with Instagram for a while, but it was mostly personal stuff. Well, I finally started tracking the link, and if you don't put like a bit.ly link or in there or something, it goes to direct traffic and you can't see it on your Google Analytics. And it goes back to Rebekah's point about how important those analytics are. Well, I did that, and I noticed all of a sudden I'm getting all this traffic from Instagram. And the thing is, it's like what Dustin said, they were spending a lot more time than a lot of the other networks on my site. Because if you've been on Instagram, you know that to get there and to click over to my site, it's kind of a hassle. It really is. It's not easy to do. But those people who did it were very qualified to want to see my content. And so that made me switch, and so I'm trying to post more stuff to Instagram because, up to Dustin's point, it's more qualified traffic for me. And so it's so important to check those analytics. And I noticed in the comments, a lot of people were asking, almost like, where do I start? How do I even know what network to get on? And just like Rebekah said, is those analytics, that's your first stopping point. If you don't know how to use Google Analytics, there's a lot of good tutorials online you can find out, but you need to see where people at the very beginning are coming to your site from, and that's where you start.
Yeah, the other great point that Rebekah made that I love is looking at your competition. I call this the CVS approach, right? Because it doesn't work for everybody, but like CVS, you look at where Walgreens has a building, and you set up your building across the street. So the same thing can work with some of our businesses. We can look at what our competition is doing. Maybe they're doing a good job, maybe they aren't, but we can take a look and we can see where their strengths are and see if there's an opportunity there for us. And along those lines, one of the next questions I always get from clients is with regard to followers. They always want lots of new followers, and some for good reasons, some not, but they want them now. And this morning I even wrote at length about what it means to buy followers and why that might or might not be a good idea. So what do you think? Should businesses buy social media followers?
No!
Never, ever, ever. Never, ever, ever, ever.
How do you really feel?
maybe just a little bit negative about the subject.
Yeah. But it's not that simple, Dustin.
No, it's really not. You know,
it's a Facebook ad campaign that targeted people and
put
your Facebook page in front of them.
There's two things when it comes to buying your following that has to be addressed. You know, there's a difference between going on Fiverr and paying someone to add 1,000 followers to your page, and doing a legitimate advertising campaign that is targeted towards finding people who are relevant to you and getting them to engage with your site. You know, one method, you don't know who you're getting, you're just doing it for the numbers. The other one, you're actually strategically looking for people that will be engaging with your brand. So two separate things, I think, two different approaches. One is strictly for the numbers, one is tied to business goals and objectives.
Yeah, I run a Twitter chat called Influencer Chat with Ann Tran, and we just tackled this topic a few weeks ago, and as you can imagine, it was a pretty hot topic. As there's a lot of confusion, and Dustin, I'm glad that you clarified, because there is a huge difference between paying somebody $5 to give you 1,000 fake followers, people that will never engage with you, and actually spending some money on ads to build legitimate followers that are targeted, that are specific to your industry, to your niche, to, as you said, your goals and objectives. So you do really have to think it through. You have to think through who are those people that you're wanting to connect with. Again, where are they spending their time? And then how can you best position your content so that you're organically and naturally attracting those people to you, you're creating those conversations that they're going to be interested in being a part of. And if you do start to get to that point where you're going to spend some money, being very, very strategic in how you're spending that, because I don't know about you guys, but when I first started running Twitter ads, for example, you can spend money like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you don't know what you're doing. So you have to be really, really crystal clear on where you're going to spend your money and how you're going to monitor that.
Well, one of the things, people who say, give the argument, well, I want to buy followers. My thing is, okay, let's say you have a super small list, under 100 people. You can take that list that you already have, upload it to Facebook. Then you can market to those people, but the cool thing then is you can actually create a lookalike audience based on that audience you already have, which gives you huge results. I mean, it's just, why even mess with fake followers who mean nothing to you or your business when even if you have a super small list, you can spend probably about the same amount of money and really get targeted people, just on Facebook, for example.
Yeah.
Well, and to play both sides, devil's advocate, of course, the answer to that is perception, especially as a business or a brand.
Rebekah.
Yeah, they're hopping on there saying, let's go to Mike's point about CVS and Walgreens. If Walgreens was just hopping on social media, CVS has 1 million followers. Well, if they're just building organically and only have 1,000 followers, what's the perception? So I think that's where we have to overcome that mentality.
Yeah, and I think it's a young mentality. It's a beginner level mentality because most people understand the idea of social proof, and no matter what you think about the idea, social proof is a real psychological concept proven to influence people to think a certain way. Social proof says that the more followers you have, the more likely you are to be authoritative, or the people like you, so you are likable. But what turns that social proof from a positive proof to negative or even depressing proof is when you have 1 million followers and 0 engagement. Nobody's actually interacting. Nobody's actually commenting. Nobody's actually buying. What is worse than a website that has 100,000 page views a month and 0 sales? Nothing. Nothing is worse. So again, it's about a deeper level of engagement and a deeper level of not just the surface level numbers. It's, you know, what do those numbers actually translate to for a business or for your overall goals. Hey, if your goals are completely ego, there are a lot of bloggers out there that are just in it because they want to be loved. They want to you know, make people smile. They want that validation. And I'm not saying that's bad at all. Sure, if you're sustaining yourself, you're making a living doing something else, and all you want to do, you're just out there because you love to write and you want people to love your writing, great. Good for you. Keep going. Do it. But for a business who's using content marketing, blogging, and social media for results, you can't just look at those surface level numbers and the vanity metrics and the number of followers. You have to translate that to, you know, actual business goals.
Well, and let's be honest. Most people are not a nonprofit.
Right. It's true.
Yeah, they've built a website and a blog to do exactly what you're talking about, to drive leads and sales.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think we all fell into that when we first got started with blogging, which is, it's that, you know, it makes you feel good. People like me. And that is terrific, but again, you've got to take that big step back and understand, what are you trying to achieve? How is your blog and all of that traffic that could be coming from social media going to help you actually get there? And if you're not targeted in who those followers are, if you're not allowing people to self-select, make that decision on their own. Jeff, you made such a great point about Instagram, that people are taking that time, and it shows. They're spending time on your site. They're watching your videos. Your bounce rate is probably incredibly low compared to maybe other social networks. So there's I think a lot of good that can come from really understanding not only the social network and where you should spend your time, but who are the people that you should be involving yourself with, who are the people that you want to be conversing with, that are really, they're craving, they're dying for your product or service, and all you need to do is put it out there in a way that helps them really identify with who you are, what you do, what you're all about.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, now on our last show was all about blogging, and if you missed it, it was incredible. But we talked about how important it was to share your latest blog posts to social media. And so let's dig into that a little bit more, you know, with the three of you. You know, how extensively do you share your new blog content to social media? And aren't repeat shares, well, repetitive?
You want me to start?
Go for it, Rebekah.
So this is a huge part of my marketing strategy. My blog has been the backbone of my business, and then the social media and the social media support has really helped me grow my blog exponentially over the last several years. You can look back on my blog, and just 3 years ago, my shares were half of what they are today. And I owe all of that to several different things. First of all, the relationships I've created with people like yourself, like-minded business professionals where we support each other. And then also, you know, it's social media, understanding those social networks, and how I'm going to leverage my content across each one of those social networks. And so I have a very specific plan in how every single blog post, all of my evergreen content goes out across all of those social networks. Visual marketing is a huge piece of that for me, which has definitely transpired over the last couple of years. I think really contributed to the big increase in not just my shares, but my traffic as well. So for me, it's just been really, really targeted in those social networks that I'm using. Understanding what's working where, because not all content is going to work the same. It's not going to be received the same. And then making sure you're seen over and over and over again. So, you know, Mike, you said it, and I know you were just pushing our buttons, but repetition is the key. It's all about consistency and getting your content out there. A lot of people will say to me, well, I wrote a blog post, so should I just tweet it once? And you know what a huge opportunity you're missing if you're just tweeting that piece of content once and getting it out there in front of just that select group that might be looking at your feed at that point. So you do. It's a very integrated method of social media when you're supporting a blog, especially for business, obviously.
I would add too, and I'm a big fan of repurposing. And so I try to, like Rebekah was saying, squeeze every last juice and wring it. And I share multiple times to multiple content. But you know, if I create my show, for example, okay, I create my show. It goes to YouTube. It's great. I have views on YouTube. Well, then I make it to a podcast, which the only real difference between that and my show is it's just audio. I put a bumper at the beginning and the end of it. But I'm repurposing content. Then I can split up that content into shorter bits and share on Instagram. I mean, so especially for small businesses who are always limited on time, is to try to think creatively on how you can repurpose that content and squeeze every last juice, every little bit of juice out of that. Mike, one of his things that he taught me that I use all the time now, and as soon as I get my blog post done or the show's done, is I create a tweet about it. I use Social Warfare's plugin on my site, and I pre-populate that. But I also take that same tweet and I put it into Social Oomph, which Mike taught me about, and that constantly goes out and is constantly retweeting my content. I have a schedule that's working for me, and that's just part of my process. Every new post goes into Social Oomph to be shared out later, and my queue just keeps growing. And so I've never had anybody complain about it. They don't say, Jeff, you're tweeting too much, or we've seen this before. I've never, ever, ever seen that. Most people ask, where can I find more stuff, and that's a good problem to have, I guess. But yeah, do it until somebody complains. It's my philosophy.
Yeah, but have you ever had anybody complain? I guess it's no.
No, never.
No,
never ever.
it's because the bottom line is you produce phenomenal content in the first place, which I think is the key. It's not just about pushing out more content, which I know we all agree on. So it starts there, and then you are just brilliantly repurposing that content and then weaving it into every single thing you do.
Yeah. Now, here's a little experiment for anybody who asks that question, specifically if it's related to Twitter. What I always encourage them to do is visit analytics.twitter.com and go to your tweets tab. Analytics.twitter.com will show you exactly how many impressions every tweet of yours has gotten. So for transparency's sake, I'll take my own example. I have 10.2 thousand followers on Twitter. Whoopee, right? My last tweet, which was this actual show, I tweeted out a link to this show, had 111 impressions. 10,000 followers, 111 impressions. Now, if that was a blog post, don't you think I'd want to repeat that tweet eventually to get a little more than 111 out of a possible 10,000 impressions? I think so. I think that data is pretty compelling to anyone because we know Twitter in particular is very fast-paced. If your tweet is not seen within the first 20 minutes, it'll never be seen, ever, by those people who didn't see it. So, and every network is different. Again, I think Rebekah and Jeff both talked about that. Every network has its own language. Every network has its own culture. So the same exact thing is not going to work the same exact way on Facebook and Twitter and Google+. For Facebook, you may want to space out the repetition a little more. For Twitter, 2-3 times a day, spread out across the entire day, not really a bad thing. I've never had anybody complain. So absolutely, you should repeat things, but understand the culture of every network. At Wheel Media, we've kind of broken down every network into according to their volume of activity. So we have high volume networks like Twitter, like Pinterest, and they are, you tend to share a lot more on those networks, whereas the lower volume networks like Facebook or say LinkedIn is one of the lower volume networks where you don't update as frequently because that culture is a not as frequent culture. So you have to be intelligent about how you approach each network because, again, each audience wants to see different things and they're expecting certain things. And so repetition, yes, but intelligently based on the audience that you're serving.
Yeah, I think that's great. Now, at SiteSell, our customers they're all entrepreneurs and they're predominantly infopreneurs. They're creating great informational sites on topics that they're passionate about. Now, for those that are focused on building what we would call evergreen pages of content and not so much blogging, what other tips do you have for them on how they could leverage social media to draw attention to their content and their business?
So you're talking about they're not blog posts. What kind of media are they creating on their site?
Yeah, so it could be a page, and this could be anybody, not necessarily SiteSell, but anyone who's creating a page or multiple pages about a specific topic. Like, it might be a page all about how to grow cactuses.
Oh, well, that's my favorite topic.
How to grow a beard.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I'll do a plug this, and I know Rebekah has, and I've learned tons about her and copied her strategy a lot on Pinterest, just because it's such a long-term driver. A lot of times, when I go to a client, and it seems to be this happens a lot, is, short-term traffic. We do a lot of stuff with buying Facebook ads, and that gives them traffic quickly. But long-term is the Pinterest strategy, and if you're doing one on how to grow cacti, then I would make a great image of that cactus or whatever, and put a nice call to action on that, and try to drive them back there. And then as you continue to populate more stuff on that Pinterest page, you just get more traffic back. So I mean, that's one way to do it. And then I'm sure these other experts have some better strategies for pointing people to cactus, but that's what I would think of straight away.
Well, yeah, and obviously we're both huge supporters of Pinterest. Pinterest and Twitter have really been my biggest traffic drivers, and not just traffic drivers, but converting traffic. From Pinterest and Twitter, people spend a whole lot more time on my website. They are very less likely to immediately bounce away, so they're reading multiple different articles. And conversion seems to be much easier because I believe we have established a relationship. There's more that long-term strategy like you talked about, Jeff, where you're really getting to know people, so they know you, they know your content, they know the quality of your content, so they're very comfortable with what that looks like by the time they come over there. So I think making that conversion is a whole lot easier between those two networks. Now, certainly that's what I have found, and I know you found something very similar, Jeff, and it's not going to be the same for everybody. So I think this goes back to understanding where your time is best spent as well. Where is your community, your audience hanging out? Where are they spending their time? And how can you best leverage that social network? Because Dustin has said it, I think, multiple times, and I don't know that you can say it enough, which is don't get started until you know where you should absolutely be focusing the majority of your efforts. Otherwise, it's in vain.
Yeah, knowing who you're serving and where and how to serve them is very, very
great
important.
point. Such a great point.
And ditto to what they said.
It's a shame none of us agree on anything. Maybe we should argue about something.
We need some more conflict.
Yes, we do.
Well,
this
here,
would never
I'm
make
going
it
to
to
ask a
network
question
television.
that we might get 4 different answers. And all I want is just a quick answer. What is your #1 favorite social media management tool? Go.
See, I saw that question in there.
Oh, I got it. I'm going to do it so no one else takes mine. I would say the most bang for your buck would probably be Buffer, because it's almost like the Swiss Army knife of social sharing stuff. If I was stuck on a desert island, and I would take Buffer.
Stuck on a desert island. That's interesting. I do agree. It's a phenomenal
Well, that
tool.
makes sense, right? Because Buffer allows you to share to multiple social networks. So if you're looking for help, Buffer would be the one to get you, the most reach because you can share to all networks.
That's my thinking.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Well, if you're looking for content, if you're looking to curate content, simplify your life, if you're looking to really boost engagement, create content that is targeted to your market, then Post Planner is absolutely the way you want to go. I will preface this with I am the brand ambassador for Post Planner, but I have been an avid user of Post Planner for years, long before that. I am a firm believer in its ability to, like I said, simplify everything you're doing. Why get out there and frantically try to search for content when there are tools like Post Planner that are doing the heavy lifting for you? They've already found the content. They've already proven that it's gone viral. And all you have to do is schedule that out, pull in maybe your evergreen content, and ensure that that's consistently going out there. So the fun in this now is, Dustin, let's see. So Jeff shared a tool that will help us consistently share our content. I shared one for finding content. So
I'm gonna throw a curveball. Is that okay?
Right. Yeah.
Throw a curveball on this. Now, I would definitely agree with both of you. But the types of tools that you mentioned are personal use tools. So those are tools that you would use to distribute content. I'm going to throw a curveball and say that the best tool I think that you can use for others to distribute your content. So there's one side of you distributing, but for others to get your reach out, to extend your reach, I'm going to selfishly and selflessly plug our little plugin, Social Warfare. There's no better way to get your content shared the way that you want it to be shared if you're a WordPress blog owner or WordPress website owner.
I would 100% agree.
Well
I use the plugin, and I make no money by supporting you. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that. Yeah,
good, I don't have to write you a check now for that endorsement.
No check.
Yeah, seriously, no, we built the product because it's something that we needed as content creators. We needed a way to allow social sharing to happen beautifully, perform well, and we wanted to get our content shared in an optimized way that we know that it will not only benefit us, but benefit the people who are sharing it as well.
Yeah, and of course I'm going to say Hootsuite. I got my alley over my shoulder there because I want to be able to monitor everything that you're all doing and everything that your fans are doing and listen to that material. So yeah, you got to have Hootsuite in the mix there. So before we wrap things up, I definitely want each of you to share what you're working on now and where everybody can find you. And we'll start with
Yeah, you can find me. I'm working on doing a talk in 2 weeks at Podcast Movement in Fort Worth, Texas. Yeah, so it's going to be fun. There's a lot of people there, and so looking forward to speaking on. I'm actually speaking on how to boost your podcast with like Pinterest, Instagram, and other visual social media networks. And you can always find me at manlypinteresttips.com, where we're adding testosterone 1 pin at a time.
I love it. Am I up next?
Sure.
All right. You can find me at RebekahRadice.com. You can connect with me on any social network at Rebekah Radice. I am at Post Planner on postplanner.com on their blog as well. And then I am co-host of Influencer Chat, which is a Twitter chat, as I mentioned earlier, where we're talking about all things social media that would help you build an influential presence across social media. And that is every Tuesday night, so tomorrow night, starting at 5 p.m. Pacific time and 8 p.m. Eastern time.
And you can find me always doing a lot of different things. In fact, I wanted to make a funny observation. I think all three of us are speaking at the Social Media Success Summit. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I forgot to mention that.
So you can find the three of us talking there. But you can find me at dustn.tv. That's my personal blog. Dustin.tv. No I in Dustin because it's not about I. And still working on that. But that's the easiest place to find me everywhere. That's my central hub for all things.
Great. Well, that's been a fantastic show. That's it for our show today, everyone. I am so thankful for my guests, Jeff, Dustin, Rebekah. You guys have been so generous with your time and your social insights. And I'd like to thank all of you in the audience for listening in. I hope you've learned as much as I have. Now, please join us next Monday at 12 Eastern, when I'll be joined by my good friends, David Amerland, Martin Shervington, and Mark Trepagan to talk about search as we wrap up our SiteSell Presents series. See you then.
Bye-bye.